So is this where you're going?
Who do you like in the East? I don't know who. I have really no idea about the East.
But,
That's the one I was the least confident in.
As I understand it, you needed 4 picks about a half hour into this.
Yeah, about a half hour after the bracket, I had to come up with my final 4, which I think is I think that's an appropriate enough time to analyze 68 teams and break down the bracket. So.
Well, you can see we're here in the huddle. We're calling it the huddle. Everybody up, and we're looking over the NCAA tournament today, and we can barely break away from it. I'm off to Omaha with our brigade of people, and Blair is going to head to Louisville, and maybe just explain a little bit why what's appealing for our readership and what's good in the bracket in Louisville.
You know, for our purposes, there's some good storylines in Louisville. Of course, you know it's not. There are 8 teams there, as there are in all the pods, but they're not in the same region. So you get 2 different regions represented, like you do in most of these. But in Louisville, Iowa State is there. We just saw the Cyclones, of course, have a great run in Kansas City. Iowa State is playing University of Alabama Birmingham, which is coached by Jared Haas, the former Kansas guard. That's interesting. Larry Brown and SMU are there. The winner of Iowa State UAB is going to take on the winner of UCLA SMU. So that's an interesting game for us. Not to mention the Kentucky Wildcats are there, the team that everybody in the country is talking about. And if you don't have them on your Final Four picks, if you don't have the Wildcats moving through, you're either going to win a lot of money or you're going to be out of this thing quick.
Well, it's an interesting thing because I think philosophically I sort of think, well, somebody's going to beat them, but I have no idea who or how, and that's the real thing. But we've seen enough sure things as we've covered this stuff over the last quarter century that never happened. This seems about as sure a thing as anything I can remember, though.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, as you said that maybe if I remember, the surest thing that I thought that didn't come through was Duke in 1999.
Against Connecticut.
Against UConn.
Right? Yep,
it was UConn's first, Jim Calhoun's first. Duke with Elton Brand. We just thought that was an unbeatable Duke team. I think their only loss going into that game, they had lost to Cincinnati way early in the season, and they just looked so dominant. And Connecticut won a high-level game. Rip Hamilton, of course, was the Connecticut star for them.
And, you know, I still hold out hope, but I think it would be better for basketball, better for the general welfare if somebody beats them. But we'll see. You know, sort of on to the things that we're going to be concentrating on most here with the Jayhawks and Shockers both being in Omaha. And I tried to write about this a little bit today, but I think you can speak to this very well. You look and immediately you see the bracket come out, and you've got as somebody, our friend Sean Keeler referred to it the other day, the academic irony bowl with Carolina playing Harvard, and you know, you were conscious of it, but I wasn't. Dana Altman going back to Omaha. There is a perception that, you know, the committee's just, you know, rolling up its sleeves, looking to cook up these things, and I'm just persuaded. We both did the mock bracket. There's just no way. And they had 12 contingency brackets yesterday.
For who was ever going to win the American, right?
Right.
There was that UConn SMU final.
Right.
And they had 12 different brackets. Like, there is no time. There is no time for conspiracy theories in the room. And you just went through the exercise just a few weeks ago. So I know I'm convinced that was it a conscious effort to put Wichita and Kansas, you know, in a possible second game in the NCAA tournament? I don't think so. I just think they put Kansas on the 2 line, they got to the 7 line, saw what 4 teams were available, and placed them based on the principles of the bracket. And it ends up being, you know, a potential great story for college basketball, and especially for this part of the country.
Especially for us. And we haven't really talked about this, but I think this is interesting. I got an email from our friend Kent Pulliam, former longtime star writer, yesterday. He believes that it's a much better matchup organically like this than it would be, you know, trying to put it together during the regular season. It will have much more meaning. I think you can debate that. I think Kent's point is good, though, that if that game happens, it's going to be as enticing a game as we'll have in the tournament.
You know, the reason it doesn't happen during the regular season is Kansas has nothing to gain by a regular season series with Wichita State. And I think they have been open to the idea that if you want to play an odd number of series, 5 games, 3 at Lawrence, 2 in Wichita, 2 in Lawrence, 1 in Wichita. Maybe they would talk about that. That's how it actually was the last time they played. It was a 5-game series, 3 were in Lawrence and 2 were in Wichita. But Kansas, I mean, no, they're just not interested in playing. And we see this throughout the country. These types of games that never get played. But now the NCAA tournament could put them together like it did Kentucky and Louisville. People don't remember this. Kentucky and Louisville played in 1984 for the first time in decades. That was a big, big deal. Remember that in college basketball? And so we might get that with Kansas and Wichita. And who knows? Maybe it thaws out the frost between the two programs.
Maybe. Well, let's zoom in on those two, and especially Kansas. I mean, it's kind of a vulnerable Kansas team. It's going to be all about matchups. I assume, without really breaking down New Mexico State, Kansas should get by there.
Should. We are a little familiar with New Mexico State here. They play in the WAC with UMKC's conference. We've seen them a couple times this year. It's not a bad team. Great defensive team. Kansas should be able to not be the 9th team in the history of the tournament to be a 2 seed that loses to a 15.
Well, we all remember those teams.
Well,
some of local interest.
On the same court,
on the same court
in Omaha with the Missouri and Norfolk State just 3 years ago.
Yeah, so that's something to be mindful of. Looks like that'll play out for KU, but we'll see. That's why they play the games. I don't know what to think of Wichita State, Indiana. I don't make any assumption there, though.
There's something that, Indiana was one of the teams that a lot of the bracketologists had as a bubble team going into the weekend, and I think teams in the history of the tournament have used that as a disrespect theme. Nobody thinks we should be in here. Let's go out and prove them right. So Indiana's at least got that going for them for a mental edge. But I think Wichita State's the better team, and Bill Self said this, and I think he's right, that Wichita State's better than a 7th seed. Now, we say that about a lot of teams, but I think the Missouri Valley kind of got hosed in the seeding with Northern Iowa as a 5 and Wichita State as a 7. Both deserve to be better than that.
I think that's right, and I think that'll bear out. I really hope we get that Sunday game. We may or may not, but let's hope for it, and that'll be enough for us to keep talking about that on Monday, I'm sure. And thanks for being with us. We'll have another edition of The Huddle next week, and stay tuned. Thanks.